So today we have the CEO of Eye of Power LLC, but he's not just a CEO. He's a leader in personal and professional development, guiding individuals and organizations to reach their full potential. With the Eye of Power system, Tom illuminates the hidden dark caves within us all, empowering us to navigate towards our goals with more clarity and purpose. He created this model to help people reach their full personal agency, or their ability to create the life that they're born to live and that they want to live. Tom is also the host of the Eye of Power podcast, which covers this topic. As an expert communicator, Tom's insights have transformed countless of lives across various industries. Beyond his professional endeavors, though, Tom is a talented musician, author, and lifelong seeker of stories, including the false narratives we tell ourselves every day. Join us as we dive into his world of personal agency, leadership, and the transformative power of storytelling. Tom Dardick, everybody.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that.
Welcome. It's all you.
Well, you'd like me to just sort of jump into a little bit of my background, the Eye of Power? Is that kind of thing?
Well, I do have a question I
Sure.
ask everybody. So
Please.
tell me, who is Tom Dardick really, and what moments from your past have shaped the path leading to who you are now and the passions that drive you today?
Sure. I would say I'm a lifelong a student of the human condition. And when I was growing up, it was a different world than it is today in most places. We were given I grew up along the shores of Lake Erie in two different places, Port Clinton and Mentor. And we were given sort of free reign very young. I mean, I'm saying when I'm 6, 7, 8 years old, my mom and dad didn't know where we were all day long. I'm the eldest of 4 boys. So we were out, and this was pretty idyllic conditions because we had the lake, we had pond off the lake, we had meadows, woods, abandoned houses. It was like a unbelievable playground. And so my earliest memories are just exploring the world in that way. And so at a very young age, I could tell you every single reptile, every single amphibian, every single insect, every single bird that lived in the Northeast, and it got me into books. And as I started getting into books, I quickly got into stories, and I really dove into Greek and Roman and Norse mythology, and that really probably kindled the flame of studying the human condition. So became a lifelong reader, really. And I would say, in terms of the other formative things, both my grandfathers, my mom's dad, my dad's dad, are both inventors, or were both inventors, and and different kinds of inventors. One was entrepreneurial, the other had almost 200 patents, but he worked for a single company his whole life. And so I think through that example or blood, I'm not exactly sure what the mechanisms are, but I think I got the paradigm of inventing, of creating, and I think that's where I got into stories and become wanting to write, and that's why I got into music, and I wanted to jam and create music. And as I got into business, I wanted to create systems and create things that didn't exist before. And I think that's probably where it all came from, Thomas.
I think at the end of the day, humans are creators. No matter what job you do, no matter what you do in life, I think at the end of the day, humans are meant to be creators. And I don't know, that's why I do what I do. I wanted to create something, and I love the fact that you use stories to help us understand why we do things. What is your favorite mythological story?
Wow, that's That's a good. I'm not sure I have an actual favorite one. The entire mythology, and really the ones that I remember the most are the Greek myths. They probably spoke the most to me. Um, Roman was just basically the same thing regurgitated. So just the names have been changed, but basically the same characters. And Norse, I got into it. It was dramatic, but I never got the insights from that as I did through the Greek um, pantheon. So what I would say is what's different about the Greek myths and what I've come to know in my life walk. And one thing I want to just say, building off of what you said, Thomas, is yeah, I do believe creation. I think that I call it the three C's. I've been throwing this theory out for decades. It's the three C's: consciousness, creation, and connection. Best I can tell, those are the three components that give us purpose and life and power and meaning and all those things that fill us up with life force. Seems to me like it boils down to those three things. But anyway, um, the 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 stories that have spoken the most to me lately, um, I'm going to say it's the story of Pinocchio, and I learned this through actually Jordan Peterson's course on YouTube, where he dives into the story of Pinocchio. But wow, is that? I mean, to me, that is a basic life story, and the real thing is, Pinocchio is made by a creator, and he's a puppet, and his whole dream is he wants to be a real boy. And the notes of the story as you go through it are all the classic things psychologically that we have to face and get through in order to be what we call a real boy. What's a puppet versus a real boy? Well, it's, are you controlled by external things or are you self-determining? So to me, that is the central question of life. Most of us are far more puppet than is comfortable to actually look at and face.
Is that a form of imposter syndrome?
If you feel imposter syndrome at all, you have puppet strings attached to you. We all
How
do.
do we how do we let go of those? How do we cut those puppet strings?
Yeah, well, that's the life's work. That's our business in this world. And really, in the Eye of Power parlance, what we talk about is taking inventory of the unique set of things that are you. So, one of the things about life is that we are all unique individuals. No one has walked no one has walked in your shoes. No one has the precise basket of perceptions and capacities uh, that you have. So there might be people smarter, better looking, more charismatic. Any one measure, you're always going to find people better. But if you take the total combination of things that make up you, no matter who you are, you're irreplaceable, that no one has what you have. So I think a lot of our business in the world is to take inventory of that, develop it, and put it to service to benefit other people. That's where we get meaning from. That's where we get purpose from. So as we do that, as we explore ourselves, develop, play in the world, find how we can lend a hand, and we all do this to some degree. But we have to get past those things that hold us back in order to do it to a more full expression of ourselves.
Yeah, I always tell people, well, including myself, before I started creating content and was afraid and had all these inner narrative thoughts about why I shouldn't do it and how it's too saturated and it's too late, blah blah blah.
Mm.
That's exactly the story I started to tell myself is, wait a minute, like nobody is me. Like we may talk about the same niche, whatever you want to talk about or whatever you want to call it, but nobody has my perspective on the topic. And I think that's what makes us all unique is we all have our, they look similar stories, but they're all individual at the end of the day. What are some of the most powerful stories that we can tell ourselves to help us walk the path that we were meant to walk?
What a fantastic question. I mean, we could probably talk all day on that. The most powerful, I mean, we started with the idea of Pinocchio. And we're all Pinocchio, but we're also all of the other characters in these classic stories as well. The characters all represent aspects of our psyche, of our makeup. One of the biggest things that I've been on lately, Thomas, is the nature of ego. Because as we take um, inventory of our particular strengths, our skills, it's natural to compare ourselves to other people. It's natural to make evaluations about where we are in life as we look around us, and I think that's perfectly valid. But we oftentimes fall into a trap with ego where we think those things that we measure and those components of ourselves and those things that make us feel, oh, you know, good about ourselves in some way or another, we think that is actually us, and we lose track of the sight of the reality that our ego is just like any other organ. It's there to propagate the species. That's what the ego's in place for. Just we were talking earlier about anxiety. Anxiety's there to keep you alive. That's why it's there. But if you are a slave to anxiety, if you're a slave to ego, you're giving your personal power away. You're giving your agency away because you're serving a portion of yourself. It's like it's if we took just the physical, we'd say, okay, heart health. I'll do anything. I'll do everything I can to serve my heart. My heart is me. Well, if I think of only in terms of my heart and I neglect the other parts of myself, the organs, the fingers, toes, eyes, whatever it might be, you can see how that might be a detriment. It's the same thing psychically as well. So, what story? I mean, almost every story. See, this. It's hard to pick one because almost every hero journey story that you want to pick is going to tell this story. It's there for you. If it's a classic story, it's classic for a reason. So, take a hero's journey. I mean, Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, Harry Potter and Harry. Pick any of them. It doesn't matter. They're all telling you the same thing. And we are Harry Potter, but we're also Hermione and Ron and Dumbledore, and we're all the characters in a story we have aspects of. So that's the power of story. So and that's the power of empathy. So we can use that in our own lives because that's also what connects us to other people. So and this is one of the beautiful things about our walk through this world is that change and growth and fulfillment and things that fill our cup up are not just an individual sport. We are connected to other people, and that's how we get meaning. We cannot see our own blind spots, so it's nearly impossible to actually advance with that relationship. That's why connectedness is one of the three C's. It's not optional. So the idea there then is we have to be serving other people in terms of helping them. And what I mean by that is helping free them from their delusion in a way. Have you ever read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz?
No,
Wasn't
but
right.
I've seen it. I always see it everywhere.
That's one. If somebody asks me what is the first book I should read to move along a path of enlightenment, that's my choice. And the reason is because it's simple and powerful. Not easy. Doesn't make it nothing. None of this is easy. But easy is not the currency that you should be looking at. Whether something's easy or not is beside the point. The currency that we should be focused on is, are things worth it? is it worth it for me to put the energy into this? And that's a much more powerful way to frame things. So the four agreements are very simple, very easy to remember, hard to do. And a lot of what I was just talking about, the reason I even mentioned it is because it was reminding me of what Don Miguel talks about. This is Toltec wisdom. So this goes back thousands of years in Central America. It was captured here and there, but kind of lost for a long time and rediscovered, I think, less than 100 years ago. But he's one of the chief ways that it's gotten back into the world. And the Toltec tradition isn't much different than any of the other wisdom traditions. Truth is truth. Reality is reality. I don't care whether you call it 1, 2, 3, red, white, and blue, ABC. Doesn't really matter what the model is. It's the truth behind it that's the important thing. And I mentioned the four agreements because behind it is the idea that we live in a kind of a dreamlike state, and our dreamlike state means that we don't really perceive reality. Our perceptions of our power of perception is limited. So what we see, like what we see with our eyes, is only a small slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. Same thing with our ears. We don't really see the full world. Our memories are very shoddy. So what we put together in our minds about what happened or what is real is a story. Actually, the latest in psychology finds that we really do think in story form, meaning that we have beginning, middle, and end with an arc and a point. So everything we think about has a beginning, middle, and end, an arc and a point. So that's just the formation of all of our cognitive power. So so that's why stories are so important, because they are the lattice work of reality to us. Story doesn't mean false. As a matter of fact, even if something like a myth or a movie or a book happens to be fiction, it doesn't mean it's not true, because the truth behind it is what is the real thing that can wake us up from the dream, get us so that what we perceive is closer to reality. And when we do that, we gain more power. So our power goes up the closer our models approach the deeper reality around us. And the problem that we have, and the why there's agreements, is that when we hear things from other people or we tell things to ourselves that aren't true, but we believe them, Don Miguel calls that an agreement. And so agreements such as somebody might say to you, they might be tired and you're annoying them. And it might be an adult, it might be your mom, it might be your dad. And they might say, "Shut up, you're too noisy." Or, "I don't want to hear what you have to say right now." Or, "Do what I say, it doesn't matter what you think." Or things like that. They don't mean to hurt you in any sort of way necessarily. But if you believe that what they said is true, that it doesn't matter what you think, that's an agreement. And that agreement has power over you. Don Miguel calls it black magic. And we all do this. We don't mean to. We don't mean to hurt people or limit their power or cause them pain and fear and keep them from living the fullest life they can. But that's the world we live in. So it takes discipline. And so the four agreements are the power agreements, four things that you can agree to that actually free you. So that's the idea there. And that's the work we do in the Eye of Power, really. I don't talk about agreements. We talk about the four corruptions that hold us back, the four quests that set us free, the four traps we might fall into, and the four capacities that give us power. So but it's a different model. These are all models to help us.
What about people who feel alone on their journey? They may have told themselves good and believing stories that set them on the sorry, my dog.
No worries.
People who are on that path of the hero's journey, they are doing the things that are resilient and positive, and they're on this ladders, stairs, whatever to reach their most powerful self, but they feel alone though. What about that?
Well, this is one of the paradoxes of life, which life is really full of it, full of paradox. Um, the truth of the matter is that we are alone. Nobody knows what's in your head. Nobody can possibly understand your walk through life. That's what we talked about earlier, right? Nobody knows the trouble I've seen, right? Nobody can understand precisely what your walk is, and that is true. The other thing that's true is we're all made of the same stuff. We all basically want the same things. We all are expressions of a greater whole. And through that, we are all actually connected. So it's also true that you're not actually alone. So both things are true at the same time. And so it can be very disorienting to try to understand, especially in those times when you very much feel isolated. And the worst isolation is when you are close to somebody and you're not close to them. So, let's just say a marriage that's in trouble, or a relationship that has had betrayal in it, where you should be super close and intimate. You should be able to share anything, but you can't. And that's where those kinds of feelings can be extremely intense. Or you might be a case where you just don't fit in. Maybe you've gone through school and you don't look like everybody else or act like everybody else. You might be neurodiverse, where your brain just doesn't work the way that everybody else around you works, and nobody can really connect to you, and you feel like you can't connect to them, and you might feel like you're in some sort of a prison. So these things can be extremely intense, and you're not going to be able to tell somebody who's in a place like that it's not real. It's absolutely real. Um, but it's not the full reality. See, this is the thing. It's real, yes, but it's not the full reality. It's a portion of the reality. And you do have the power to expand that reality into what the full reality is. They say the truth shall set you free. And so, how would somebody feeling isolated like that get along or get out of that? And the path of least resistance is that I can tell, that anybody else that I've been able to find can tell, is to contribute, to do something for somebody else. So when you're feeling low, isolated, down, the path out is look for somebody else who's hurting, look for somebody else's pain, and try to do what you can to help them, support them in whatever way you can. It starts getting really powerful when you find the ways that you can contribute in ways that only you can, where you're using your superpower. You feel super isolated. You feel lonely. You know what it feels like. You can recognize it in other people, and you can empathize in ways that somebody who isn't there can't possibly do. So you're actually in a much better position to be of service to people that have the same pain that you have than other people are. So these are the ways that you can go forward, and it doesn't take much. All you need is a little bit of forward motion to change the energy, and to get out of that miserable hell.
I think whoever's listening, I think it'll help them get through whatever. It's like letting go of the kind of like, because when you feel alone, you're all in your head, right? It's like all you can think of is like, I don't have anybody. I can't do anything. Like, how do I, like, why do you really feel alone? And I think what you said, when you start helping other people and start just putting yourself out there and connecting with other people and share more of your story and be vulnerable and open, it'll slowly help you not feel alone.
Yeah, I could add a little bit to that. In the Eye of Power model, which is based on what I call the power grid. And what I mean by the power grid is simply, what can we do in this world? Like, where should I direct my energy? Well, there's two things we can really do. We can think and we can act, right? And our thoughts and our actions can be directed either towards ourselves or towards other people. So what I did to build the model is say, okay, let's put those two things together in a grid like this. And then as I thought through, okay, what's the nature of each one of those directions? That's where I started coming up with these layers of things that hurt us and things that help us. The grid that describes our action towards ourselves, that quadrant is what I labeled the pain quadrant, because pain is um, kind of the determiner of what actions we are actually willing to take on our own behalf, our relationship with pain. So they say no pain, no gain, right? To build up muscle, to get in good shape, muscle both physically and psychically requires sacrifice, and it requires doing things that don't feel good in the moment, right? So you're trading something short term for something else long term. And so our relationship with pain becomes one of the primary relationships that determine the heights to which we're willing to let ourselves rise. And when you talk about feeling lonely or isolated, that is some of the most intense pain that humans can feel. When people are given a prison sentence, what's the thing that we use to punish the people that are already being punished, right? It's solitary confinement, and it's a strong motivator, right? If you threaten that, people do not want that. And even the worst hardened criminals in the world don't want that, really. I mean, it takes a very, very broken brain to be immune to that. But generally speaking, functional humans, we need other people. It's just a bottom line. And so the pain as it relates to loneliness is a very profound one. And like we were talking about earlier, that pain is worth exploring. That's worth looking at and saying, okay, what's blocked here? Why am I? What is it? And you said it a minute ago, Thomas, when as you described the scenario where we might be all in our heads. When we're like that, we're focused on us, what we're doing, right? And in that, we might also focus on what other people did to us, right? We're looking when we're doing this, like, well, this person did this and it causes me to feel this bad way I don't like. And that's an easy blinder, because they didn't act in a vacuum. They didn't act out of nowhere. Are there examples where people have malice and want to cause you harm? Absolutely, that happens. But in most cases, that's not the full story. That's not what is actually transpiring. There's other things involved. And so that pain could be um, a signal that says, okay, what's really going on here? So our job as human beings is to follow that thread and untangle it and do that hard work. Because here's the truth of it. It's going to have to require you to look in the mirror, and you're going to see things that you don't like because of our dual nature, right? If we're capable of love and connection and service, we're also capable of its opposites. Everything's a duality in this world. So you have to understand that, we have both poles within, and you have to look and see how that shows up. So it takes courage, and that's actually the capacity in the pain quadrant. Is actually courage, which is being afraid and acting and doing the thing you know to be right anyway. So
What about? Oh man, I just lost me. I had a question, a good question. Well, your story, it reminded me of, I don't know if you ever seen this movie called Papillon. It's a movie about a man that gets sent to an island prison
Dustin Hoffman and Steve
off the coast
McQueen.
of like France. Um,
I think it
let
was
me see
Steve
real quick.
McQueen.
Papillon.
Dustin Hoffman and Steve McQueen. I saw that in the theater when I was a little kid. Like I was way too like I was like maybe 14 years old, and it was an R-rated movie. It was like the first R-rated movie I ever went to, and it was it was very harsh for a little kid. I should not have gone.
I think they remade it.
They
No,
probably did.
it's a newer movie.
You said
Um,
Papillon?
it's based off of a Papillon. Yeah,
Yeah, Papillon means
it came out in
butterfly in French.
2017.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
and
that's butterfly in French. So that's a fantastic the original. I didn't see the remake. I saw the original. But yeah, yeah, that's a fantastic
is it the
story.
same story
Well, the
about when they get
yeah,
sent to prison?
yeah, they're on an island prison. You can't really escape, and yeah,
Yeah,
and that's another thing. I could have answered that
he gets
on one of your
years
early
of
questions.
solitary confinement.
Yeah, but
Years, and he's still like, what do you? That's what I was gonna ask. Like, what do you think? Voluntary pain versus involuntary pain, and then like this Papillon true story. There's a real man that was in solitary confinement, eating like a piece of bread a day
yep,
and like a cup of water, like the bare minimum to
yep.
survive, for years. Like it was like you got to see the remake. It's so good. Like
I
it's so
will.
good. It's like when they when he gets sent to these solitary confinement cells, it's like time
Yeah,
stops, and then like in the blink of an eye 3 years have passed, and he's still there. He's not giving up. Like people, normal people would have died or tried to kill themselves, and this guy, the main character that's based off a real story, that eventually escaped and became a free man. um like, what do you think? Why do you think it, like, how do you get into that mindset? You have so much conviction and your vision for the future. You know what's going to happen. He created that. He manifested. He Those 3 years he seen himself escaping, and he didn't feel, I guess he was alone, but he could see himself escaping, and then voluntary versus involuntary
yeah.
pain.
There's a ton in that story, and I have a few thoughts on that. First thing is, as I was saying earlier, I saw that as 13 or 14, first star movie I ever saw. Shouldn't have seen it, because it traumatized me. But as I was sharing that, I realized that actually probably formed a lot of um, my impressions, because ever since then I've been very drawn to the drama of the prison. So how we deal with prisoners, and how our prison system. I have a treatment. I haven't published it yet, but I have a treatment that's on that topic. It's a story. Um, but it's been a part of my life. It might just be because of that one experience, that seeing Papillon as a young boy. Um, but papillon means butterfly. That's what it means in French. And what do butterflies do? Well, they create cocoons or chrysalis, right? So the metaphor there is that he was able to create a cocoon, a chrysalis, and you said it, stop time as he metamorphized into something. And then when we think about the butterfly, free and beautiful, right? So this is a metaphor for our lives that actually has power, because we can actually, even when put upon, even in tough circumstances, we do have options. We do have power. We can be the author of the story. And this story is a perfect example of how extreme that power can actually be. Shawshank Redemption is another such story, right? Same basic thing.
Have you read Man's Search for Meaning?
Viktor Frankl, yeah, absolutely. Another perfect example, yeah.
That's a similar one. Yeah, he was like the one that that made like his circumstances wasn't, he didn't accept like you know, like everybody was starving to death. They basically were dead, but they were still alive, and he refused to be dead and still alive.
Yeah. And that's also yeah, I mean that's maybe the blueprint for all of the topic we're on now, Thomas. But yeah, Alexander Solzhenitsyn with the Gulag Archipelago, that's another one of similar, where very very, I mean, as unjust as you can get. And really, another, probably the grandfather of all of these is probably the story of Jesus, with the Passion of the Christ story, where you know unjustly done about as bad as you could possibly do. Everybody knew he was innocent and did it anyway. It's as bad a thing as could possibly happen to somebody. And then the story goes that he, what's the word I'm looking for? He gets past that condition and lives again, right? So that is the deeper truth of our life, right? Which is, no matter what happens to you, you're still the author. You still are the one that puts it in its context and assigns the meaning as it relates to what it's going to do for you and your expression in this world.
Yeah, I think that story was a true testament to deeply living your purpose, your passion, and doing it with so much faith and conviction that you'll be willing to die for it. I think
Yeah,
that's
there's
why
things.
it resonates. Yeah.
Well, the part of us that fears death is the ego part, because the ego's purpose
Mm.
is to not die. So, so the ego, right? So its whole purpose is to keep the genes going, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the ego is like, the death is like the worst thing. But we are not our ego. Ego's an organ. It's a part of us. It's not who we are. So when we're fearing death, like severely fearing death, that's because we're living as though the ego is us.
How do we detach from the ego? Because I think there's some good sides of the ego. Like,
Oh yeah.
I think some of the ego can help with that vision. Like, oh, like you have to have some ego to be like, yeah, I can do this. Like, I can see myself doing this. But when you take it too far and you start like walking over people or thinking you're better than people or whatever, I think that's when it gets too far. How can we like keep that good side of it that helps us create this vision, but then let go of that side that gets egotistical or the negative aspects of it?
The one word that comes to mind as I think about that question, Thomas, is respect. So respect is so critical because, um, you know, ego, like I said, it's like an organ, right? So you wouldn't say, oh, I don't need my lungs, I don't need my heart, I don't need my brain, I don't need my stomach, right? You need those. Now, medical, we can sort of we can start blurring the lines as to how much we need these things, and as time goes on, this analogy might not hold much longer. But my point is that respect means that you understand its function, its value. It's there for a reason. Everything that exists is there for a reason. Every person that you meet has value. They're there for a reason. It's something that has come about that has a purpose, that has a place. And respect is just acknowledging and recognizing that. That's what respect is. It's putting in its proper framework. When we don't respect, it's when we're out of balance with that value hierarchy. So we think that we matter more than another person does, or that what what um, what we do is inherently more anointed than what somebody else does. And that those are the traps of the ego. Those are the things that are not respectful. We're out of respect in a work environment. To me, the currency is respect. If you don't have respect, you don't have a good team. You have to have respect. If you don't, it's a necessary ingredient. And I'll tell you, it breaks my heart to see how much people just bleed respect. It's like they just throw it out the window willy-nilly. It's just horrible. But it's the human condition, unfortunately.
So the Eye of Power system.
Yeah.
How can this help people? Like, what is it at its core, and how can it help people?
So we've been talking about some of the aspects that are, definitely as part of that system. It's in there. Um, but I'll tell you something I've learned, Thomas, and that is that if we want to make a positive change, it is not an intellectual exercise. Because, like take for instance, if somebody wants to get healthier, right? They know they need to drop weight. They want to be fit. They want to be able to get more out of the chassis, right? Not be tired all day long, right? All these stuff. Is it a mystery as to what to do? Now, there's competing theories, what's better than what, but pretty much people know if I stop eating crap, I start eating nourishing foods, if I start moving, if I start using the machine more systematically, I'm going to be moving in the right direction. So it's not mysterious as to what to do there. So it's really not an intellectual thing. We are creatures built on emotion. And so the work that we need to do, we have to recognize that it's emotional work. And here's the problem: we cannot see our own blind spots. So for these two reasons, we need other people. So in the Eye of Power system, we build that into the mix. You're not doing the work by yourself. We have what's called a guide system, where you come in, you're going to be working on stuff, you're going to be applying the we call them lenses. So each week you're looking through these lenses, and then you're looking through those lenses, and you're considering yourself, and you're saying, okay, through these lenses, what thing can and will I do different as a result? And you commit to that, but you don't do it by yourself. So you have a guide. Somebody is helping you, partnering with you, helping you say, okay, can I really do this? What are the results? What are the things? How did it go? Helping keep you accountable. Did I do it? Did I say what I was going to do? And then also, you're functioning as a guide for somebody else. So as you go through this system, you're doing it yourself. You're guiding somebody, and somebody's guiding you. So you're having these very important, not long, but important conversations with at least two other people on a regular basis as you move forward, going through the model. It's based on it's 4 quadrants, so it's over a 4-month kind of thing, 1 quadrant per month, one of the aspects per week, and you're going through it systematically like that. And but you're doing it with other people. So you're moving ahead yourself. You're helping somebody else move. You're being connected to somebody who's helping you, and you're doing this as a group together doing that. So that's the idea there. So because we are moved through emotion, and that means relationship.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the power of community, and that's something that I actually miss about when I was in the military.
Yeah.
I had some of the closest friends, like the closest camaraderie. We have like camaraderie. We do everything together. You sleep, eat, shower, uh, work, literally everything. And that is one aspect that I miss in the military that I actually want to recreate, like with my podcast community. I want to do something like that
Well,
eventually, or maybe like, yeah.
what I was going to say
Go
there is the
ahead.
power of that experience, Thomas. You tell me, but my guess is that it's because the shared mission was, I got you. In other words, it's my responsibility to make sure you're safe, or as safe as you can be under, when push comes to shove.
Yeah.
It's that shared thing. Like in combat, I know this guy's got me, and I got him, or I got her, and so it's it's that baseline agreement foundation that says we have each other, that builds that. You can't get much of a stronger connection than that, right? So that's what it's built
Yeah. We had a motto. It said no man left
for.
behind.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad because I was in the Navy when there was a crazy freak accidental collision in the 7th Fleet. It was in Japan, and it was like right before I transitioned, but it was transitioned out of the sea duty, and I think like 8 people died,
Yeah.
and somebody had to make a horrible it like it was the worst decision because the way the Navy ship is built is you have watertight hatches that if something hits, you'll be able to completely lock it out, like lock out the flood, and you'll still be able to float.
Yeah.
So they had to make a hard decision because it happened in like 3 in the morning, like hundreds of thousands of gallons of water was flowing in, and somebody had to make the hard decision to lock people in there
Yeah.
to save the rest of the ship.
Yeah. That's tough.
So like 8 or 7 people died, and yeah,
Yeah. That's rough.
it's just I don't know. It's rough
Yeah.
times.
Very much rough. Very rough times. Hey, I've got somebody coming to my door that I got to let in. Can I just make a quick pause real quick here?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
go
I'll be
ahead.
right back. Sorry. Oops. Sorry about that, Thomas. Sorry about that.
All good. I just let my dog back in. He stays quiet. But well, Tom, do you have anything you'd like to cover before we?
Well, one of the things I was thinking based on what we were just talking about was the
Yeah.
notion of leadership, and because I mean, you just gave a good example of perhaps one of the toughest decisions a leader would ever have to make when you're talking life and death, that kind of thing, and what you know, it's bad. You got two choices, bad and worse, right? And
Yeah.
and so while that doesn't describe maybe the decisions we have in business every day, we do have life and death for the organization business decisions on a regular basis. And I see a lot of lack of courage in the world where, for instance, if somebody is, let's just say, poisoning the well, they're toxic. They don't mean to be toxic. They don't mean to cause problems, but their paradigm is such that they're causing problems. And what I tell leaders in these circumstances is, look, you're the one who sets what's okay and what's not okay. You're the one who's the person that's holding to the mission that says, okay, this is the shared mission, and your job is to get people aligned with themselves and with the mission. And you have two choices when you're doing that. You have to either change your people or you change your people. One of the two. One's up to them, one's up to you. And you have to hold to this, right? And there has to be some guidelines that are known, consistent, right? And that's how you're able to build a meritocracy or organization that's built on mutual respect. And only through that are you going to have trust and get to the point where people are going to like you functioned in the Navy, where you had each other's backs, and that builds a certain resiliency and a certain level of performance that can't really be beat. and that's really the task of leaders. So I'll just tack on to that, say that's what I try to do with the Eye of Power system, is help leaders systematically provide the gravitational pull in this direction. So people are working on their courage, working on their openness, their honesty, their connectedness, their sense of purpose, their sense of shared mission, their willingness to not just take the easiest path, but the most worthy path. These kinds of things.
The most honorable path.
There you go.
At its
That's where the gold
core,
is. The gold's there. It's nowhere else but there. Yeah.
with honor.
Yeah.
No, that's actually funny because we had that was another motto we had in the Navy: honor, courage, commitment. And you could take that anywhere, like whatever you want to do, have honor, have courage, and be committed to it.
With those things,
But people like, yeah, but people, a lot of people in the Navy, like they thought it was cringe, like, this honor, courage, commitment. Like,
well, they're
but
under
it,
they're
yeah.
under agreements that aren't compatible with that. That's why to them it looks like cringe, right? They think that these they think that that's a false god, and they don't know that they don't see the ways that uh, compromising any of those ideals. They don't see the ways that costs them, and it costs them dearly. If they saw,
Mm.
I mean, it's worse than sawing your hand off, Thomas. It's worse than sawing your leg off. It's worse to be dishonorable than to lose any number of limbs. That's the fact of it. That's the reality of it. But they don't know that.
Yeah, that it just reminds me of like old times where if you were dishonorable, you'd be like banished from the village or banished from the town, and you'd be shunned and shamed. And but today we don't really have that, so that's why people can
Well,
easily say like, oh, it's just cringe, or
Well, the other thing is
you
the
know.
word itself, right? The concept of honor, right? So they might be saying, "Oh, your honor is an honor to me," So we have to get aligned on what we mean by that concept. So it's really very conceptual. The best I can tell is the contagion of the day traces back to what I would call, or not just me, a lot of people would say, would be called moral relativism, which comes from postmodernism, which says that there really isn't a deeper truth. It's just whatever I think is my reality. There's truth there. I mean, we were saying it earlier, right? We are the authors of our reality, and what we think is not the full reality. We're sort of in a dream. So it's not that what they're saying is completely false. But what they don't realize is that there are timeless things that you forget these lessons at your peril. And so there isn't this just willy-nilly moral relativist, it doesn't matter what other people think or do. That's too far the other way. So this is where the confusion comes in. There's a lot of um, pathogens, idea viruses that plague people. So this is what you're pointing to when people
I
can't,
agree
yeah, and so they're just under a
100%
spell.
because yeah, because that's why we have traditions. Like we have traditions for a reason. We have ancient wisdom for a reason. We have the meditations by Marcus Aurelius, like thousands of years ago. It still applies today because at the end of the day, we were the same humans with the
That's
same
right.
minds. We just went through. We actually did go through similar events. Like it's like a cycle. Like we had Rome, and then they fell, and now we have America, which is the biggest superpower, and we're probably gonna fall.
Yep.
And it's just a cycle. And at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we have these traditions for a reason. And I have two questions before we move
Okay,
on.
please.
So what makes a good leader? Like what is like a core thing that makes a good leader?
Well, I used a couple of the concepts already on that with respect, right? So having the values in proper order and respecting individuals. But what I really say is the best leaders actually love their people, and I don't mean love like they have to accept every single thing about them as though they can do no wrong. That's not the kind of love I'm talking about. What I mean is they want the best for them. So respect, and so the best leaders want the best for the people on their team. And sometimes that means the best for that person might mean they're not in this position or they're not even on the team. So that it could be tough love, but they want the best outcome for the people around them. That to me is the ante, the table stakes.
And Tom, what are you most passionate about right now? And what visions do you have for the future for yourself?
Well, I'll tell you, Thomas, my being on podcasts such as yours, and like you said, I have my own, and I get to talk to a lot of people that are in uh, you know, the human advancement world. It gives me hope for the future. I think I don't think there's thousands. I think there's millions of people around the world that are in the process of awakening to what can be. And we're in very scary times right now because the rate of technological change is unprecedented, and we are not built for change at the rate we're experiencing it. I went through an AI course last year, and most of what I learned is now obsolete. It didn't even last as long as the course lasted. So it's it's there's times every whatever we're doing in work, it's the landscape is changing so quickly, and so we're going to have to be very connected to what matters most, and those that remain connected to that are going to thrive, and those that lose sight of that are going to be in some trouble. And I'm talking about leaders, I'm talking about organizations, I'm talking about individuals, where you have to understand what matters most. And the things that we've just been taught, all the things we've been laying out are the fabric of what's going to matter the most. And I don't think organizations, I don't think leaders have a lot of leeway to screw around. I think they have to be in the business of developing high functioning teams that are based on respect and trust, because the world of work is changing. So to me, it's either going to do this or somebody who is doing it is going to replace you. One of the things that in my course on the AI that people were talking about was pretty soon there's going to be $1 billion company with only 3 people in it. So you think about what that means, right? That means that you're going to have to really be very productive as a person to be to
Mm,
have a solid place in the workplace, and that's going to change the nature of what we consider work to be. And like you were talking about with your experience
mm,
in the Navy, it wasn't the work you were doing, it was who you were with, it was the connections you
mm,
had, that shared mission that provided
yeah,
the energy for you to move forward, right?
yeah,
And organizations are going to have to tap into that. That's going to be the currency of the future. A very wise person, actually, Mark Murphy in the Financial Place, was saying the
mm,
currency of the future is not dollars and cents. It's wisdom and
mm,
creativity. Wisdom and creativity. Those are the currencies that are emerging, and that resonates with me. I think that's true.
man. That resonates with me too.
Yeah.
You just boosted my ego right
No, you're on to something, man. It's great. Yeah, it's great. And I don't know exactly how old you are, but you're pretty young, and you got a young family, and you're in a scary world for sure, because who knows where this spinning die is going to take us. But in these times of turmoil, also are the seeds of tremendous potential, and we can combine things in new ways that never were able to be brought before, and that can bring things about that we couldn't even dream of today. And I look toward that side of the equation, and that's because I'm maybe naturally
Me
optimistic.
too.
But there's going to be problems. There's going to be pain. There's no doubt about that. But I think the net is going to be generally I go towards the better outcome, and one where people are feeling more fulfillment in their life, and higher degrees and quality of connection, and a higher level of
Yeah.
consciousness than in the past. And I think that is a net good thing, regardless of the
I
structures that
support
are
it.
blown up in along the way. So
I mean, I think that's the path that America is headed. I think we're headed towards the path of destroy and rebuild. And
whether
honestly, I'm
whether we
just
like
being
it or
honest. I
not,
think that's yeah. I think we're on that path right now. Is falling to rebuild,
well,
and
this is the
I think we're gonna rebuild on our traditions and what we know best.
yeah. I mean, like you said earlier, the traditions are the things that are there for a reason. They hold up against the test of time. They're not changing anytime soon. Now, there are some things that we might have to adjust because what it means to be human with technology could actually start changing, right? We could start having interfaces between the brain and some external
The
processing,
Neuralink.
neurolinks. Peter Gabriel has a project, Panopticon, that's pretty wild to think about, where you can actually, and they're trying to make this happen, and I think it probably will at some point, where you can actually download the experiences of somebody else. So when we were saying earlier about no
The
one knows
Matrix.
your walk, that might actually not be the case much longer. So that's a game changer, right? That change,
That's literally the Matrix
yeah.
when he was like, "Oh, I need to learn kung fu," and he was like, "Okay, let me download, let me give you a black belt, whatever,"
Yeah,
and then he learned it.
yeah, it's that plus though, because it's also the sensations you had as somebody turned you down for a date, or called you a loser, or somebody
Uh,
tortured you and your family, or
isn't that scary though?
killed your mother in front of you, or raped your mother in front of you, something like that, uh, and and
Isn't that
and
scary though?
and very. But the reason behind that, and the power behind that, is think
Yeah,
about what that might do for power of empathy. So maybe
yeah,
we'll
that
have
is
less
a good thing.
maybe we'll have less tolerance for ugliness in the world, perhaps. I don't know, but as long as humans are human, I think what you said holds for sure. So
100%, Tom. Well, I end every podcast the same way. We play a quick game. Where should we begin? Game of stories. Quick overview. There's a prompt
oh,
card
cool.
that guides you, and a story card that inspires you.
Okay, cool.
So it's completely random.
I
You can
love it.
skip it if you don't feel comfortable opening up about it, or if it's
I'm an open book, my friend.
okay. Okay. Okay, this is kind of a funny one. So you read the blue card first, and then this
Okay.
one.
All right. So share something forbidden. If you catch me by the fridge tonight, I probably sneak. Okay. All right. Something forbidden. Well, I'd say for me, something forbidden would be I have a libido, right? I'm a married man. I've been married 27 years. Uh, and when I see a attractive woman, I'm still darn attracted, right? So that's forbidden and doesn't matter. It doesn't shut down the systems. That's for sure.
And then
Um, and then
this part.
if you catch me by the fridge at night, I'm probably sneaking milk and chocolate.
What kind of chocolate?
I like what I try to do is get away from the candy store shelf chocolate and try to get higher
Yeah,
quality. I want to eat less,
dark
like
chocolate.
like higher quality, less of it. So that's what I try to do. So like we have a chocolatier
Mm.
near us that I get.
You have a chocolatier?
Yeah, that I'll get a supply of that, and I try to go to that, and the higher quality, like whether it be a Godiva or or a Ghirardelli or something like that. I try to go for that stuff over the
No,
you know
I love dark chocolate. I get the uh like 90%,
the
like barely any sugar, and like I try to get the fair trade
okay, okay.
sourced, and I'll either have a like one little square of it, or I'll make a dark chocolate
Oh
mocha,
wow.
and I'll have a coffee, and I'll break off like three or four squares, and then I'll melt it and stir it with like half and half, or uh healthy milk or something.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's it. And you obviously you're getting antioxidants, and it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too bad. So that's good. Yeah.
Well, Tom, my first question of my final
Yeah.
questions is, what is your biggest regret?
Oh, hmm. It's hard to have regrets because they're all learning experiences. So
Mm,
I don't. But having said that, hurting hurting somebody. So I'm going to say
mm,
I had a partnership that really caused some problems between my wife and I actually, um,
mm,
that I I was sort of insensitive to the hurt it caused her, thinking that the
mm.
overall good that it was doing was worth the price. And so if I had a do over on that one, I would have been more sensitive to her, and I could have navigated that better. And that was a few years ago. So that's probably the most open raw sore of anything that I can think of.
That reminds me of this. I don't know if it's a quote or a saying, but it's like sometimes good people do bad things, and sometimes bad people do good things, subconsciously or
Yeah,
consciously. And
I'd say all the
yeah,
time.
it's just a
It's hard.
testament
It's
we're all
hard to be good.
human. Yeah, we're all
Right.
human, you know. Yeah.
That's right. And we are all beings of limited perceptive power. So our job
Mm,
is to come into greater alignment. And it's a lifelong task.
yeah.
As long as you live, you're still going to have
Yeah.
more you can go. So
To the
we
day
got
I
to be a little
die, I'm gonna
graceful
be
about it.
learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always tell people, till the day I die, I'm gonna be learning
Oh, absolutely.
more.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
My next question is, who or what has made the biggest impact in your life that makes you who you are today?
I don't have just a one. I'm going to say I quoted him earlier with the Pinocchio thing with Jordan Peterson. I've learned
Mm-hmm.
a lot through his stuff, um, and a lot of it was stuff that I already sort of studied and knew, but he was able to put things together. One of the things that I respect most about him is um, he spent 15 years writing his book Maps of Meaning, and really what it was is a deep dive in all the various wisdom traditions, trying to put together, okay, what's in common between these things, what and I think that was a very worthy task that he threw himself into. And then none of us most of us would never have heard of him except for when Canada passed C-16, which was requiring speech, and
Oh wow.
he said, wait a minute, this is a bridge too far. When you start doing this, it looks like Soviet Russia. It looks like
Mm,
fascist Germany. It looks like Maoist China. It looks like when you start trying to regulate what's in people's heads, that leads to a bad way. So he felt like he had to stand up against that, and he paid a price for that. But it was the courageous, right thing to do, and I respect the hell out of that. Not many people in his position are willing to do that. Now he's benefited from it a lot. I mean, he's right now he's very probably the most famous psychologist in the world. I'd say odds
yeah.
are. Um,
He's gonna be remembered for sure.
yeah, and and you know whether if you're in that field or if the name brings up something in you where it says, oh, I don't like that guy, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the work he's done is a huge favor to the world. You don't have to accept every precept that comes out of his mouth. He's a human just like anybody else. But
Mm.
but he's built something that is a huge gift to the world. That I respect the hell out of that. Yeah.
Me too, man. He's one of the most vulnerable men I've ever seen too. He cries so
Yeah,
much
I'm like
on
that. I'm
like
crying.
in public, in
Yeah,
public, and it's you gotta that takes courage. Like people see it like, why is this crybaby crying? It's like, no, that actually takes courage, especially as a man, to
yeah.
be vulnerable in the public eye as well.
I got to tell you something, Thomas. I was at a conference it was actually about four weeks ago. It's actually the one I was in Austin, when I was in Austin. It was a 3-day thing, and at the end, people were sort of sharing. There was about 30 people. At the end, people were sort of sharing what they got out of it. And one woman, she's from Canada, she stood up and she says, "I want to thank the men in this room." She said, "I've only been around my whole life, my husband, my sons, my people I work with, the people in my community. I've been around dudes." and 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 what she meant by that is what you were just pointing to, right? Guys that would never cry in front of other people, that sort of thing.
uh,
And
like manly men,
yeah,
manly men.
like that, right? And emotionally repressed, or whatever you might call it. She said, "I've never been around men who are open, vulnerable, willing to just go there and be emotionally available and open." And she said it's been a transformative experience for her. And it just, in the world that I'm in, I see it all the time. So I kind of lost sight of the fact that I'm the norm.
It's not. It's not. Because as men, we're told to just toughen up and get through it. And it goes back to like what we were saying. We're human too. We feel emotions. We can't just be robots, and we can't just like we may toughen it out, but we still feel feelings.
Absolutely. And
And
stoicism, I'm a fan
yeah,
of stoicism. I'm a fan of
me too.
emotional strength. I'm a fan of being strong for other people. But being strong doesn't necessarily mean being shut down. As a matter of fact, if you're shut down, I'm going to say that costs you
Mm,
power. If there's parts of you that's just pushed way down, it's showing up. You just don't know how. It's out of your control. So you might have a hair trigger temper or something like that, or somebody irritates you and your response is outsized. That's the way that kind of stuff shows up.
well, back in the day when they would have war with swords and shields, and the battle would be over, the men would they would let it out. They would let all their emotions out. They would celebrate. They would cry tears of joy. They would hug each other. They would say, "We made it. We made it through." They would express all their emotions, you know?
Yeah, and in the beginning too,
So,
right? War cries, and I mean, again,
mm,
these rituals they might look silly to the untrained eye, but there's reasons for all of this stuff.
it's innate. It's our human nature.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
My next question is, what is one lesson that you had to learn the hard way?
I'm going to say the lesson I'm learning the hardest way, I'm still working on. I'm still, at age 62, I'm still trying to learn this lesson, and that is that it's not about me. It's as much as we're talking about this stuff, I'm still, I still have all the same patterns in
That's the
my
ego.
mind that I had when I was younger. And so,
Yeah.
like, for instance, getting out there with the Eye of Power, talking about it as many people as I can. I still sometimes say, well, I don't want to bother this person or whatever. It's like, wait a minute, well, who's that
Uh,
about, really? It's
Yeah.
about what they might think of me. It's not about, am I helping them? So, I know I still have work to
Yeah.
do there. So, um, we all still have like some sort of resistance that's in there that needs to be um, addressed. And I'm no different than anybody else on that.
Yeah, something that's helped me with that and also with my podcast and just um because I use Podmatch and then I also just DM random influencers and sometimes I get people, sometimes I don't. And what helps me is just sometimes it's okay to ask for help and no matter what your perceived status level is online or whatever, just like we keep going. This is the topic of this podcast. We're all
Yeah,
humans.
that's right.
We're all humans. You're just another human just like me. So why not go ask, like I'm inviting somebody to tell their story that may inspire somebody.
Yeah, I love it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. My next question is what would you do or what would you want to experience in life if you had all the time and all the money?
Well, I'm actually moving towards that as trying to manifest that very thing. So, what I call it the digital nomad lifestyle. So, the Eye of Power is being built so it works whether I don't have to be there in person. So, it's a system that
Mm,
organizations take on, and so I can work remotely, and that will allow me to be anywhere in the world I want to be for however long I want to be there. So now that my wife and I are empty nesters, that's the lifestyle we want. And my daughter's in Florida, my son's in Pittsburgh. We want to be able to spend time in those places, but also in other places in
yeah.
the world that we want to be. And so really that's it. I don't have a lot of material desires for luxury items or lots of stuff. I
Yeah.
don't I don't I don't
Same.
I don't hanker for things. I've got the things I need. Um, I hanker for experiences. So
Same.
those are the things that I want to manifest in my life as experience. And by experiences, what I mean are shared experiences with people. So be able to
Mm,
go places, to be with people that I respect, to have amazing trips or shared, you know, do lecture cruises or I go on these music cruises. I absolutely love. So with tons of bands,
what
you know.
what cruise line?
The last one's I just booked one for just actually today, yesterday. Next year's Cruise to the Edge. Well, that one's on Norwegian. Just did Cruise to the Edge. This
Mm,
past year was just last month. So they get like 30 bands on board with you, and it's like a festival, an
wow.
after party, all rolled into one while you're on the seas going around. It's amazing. I love it.
The one thing I love about cruises, I've been on one, I think one or two with princess cruises. They're more like a artsy,
Ah, okay.
like like they have art auctions
Yeah,
and fancy people and they had a Broadway show, like a live Broadway show, which was actually really good. Um, and yeah, art auctions selling like hundreds of $1,000 paintings from like
yeah.
the Picassos of yesterday and today. And but one thing I love about cruises is everybody is in like a good mood.
That's right.
Like it's like the whole ship is just like you walk by anybody, they're smiling.
Yep.
Like
People
you
are
can't go
relaxed.
anywhere without seeing a smile.
Yeah, people are relaxed. I mean, if you're like, my wife doesn't like them. We're actually going on a Greek Isle cruise at the end of this month, and
Oh, she doesn't like
she
them.
doesn't like them. I got her to go on this one because this one is in the Mediterranean. You're not at sea, for extended periods. It's like you're traveling at night and
Yeah,
then you're at port
it's
all
a
day.
mood. Yeah,
But she's from
yeah.
Iowa. She doesn't like the open water, so and she doesn't like crowds. So
Uh,
so those two things
well,
make
I
it.
mean, I'm the same. Like I'm an introvert at heart. I love solitude. Um, I think it's a mood thing for me
Yeah,
because I'm used to the ship life. I've been on, I've been out to sea probably for accumulated 2 years of my life.
Wow.
Just floating in the middle of the ocean,
Yeah,
bro.
so that part of it is not novelty at all.
So that is the easy part. But I get that you feel kind of stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
Like especially if you explored the whole ship, you've seen everything there is, and then but then the cool part is you get to go to different ports and you get to see those places as well.
Yeah,
So
I
and
love.
everybody's in a good mood.
Yep,
So
I love that, and I'm you know I'm an extrovert, so I love meeting people, and like you said, people are all in a good mood, relax. It's the, I mean,
yeah.
you know, by the end of a cruise, I know, you know, dozens more people pretty well, you know, and
Yeah.
I absolutely eat that stuff
No,
up. So,
same. I remember my last cruise. We had a specific like friend like group. We just kept seeing them, and we kept
that's how it
like we kept
works.
seeing, and then we
Yeah.
just ended up hanging out, and then
Oh,
just chatting, and we kept hanging out together like for the whole cruise. And
that's cool.
yeah,
I
I
think my
remember
guy who's
having a
visiting here
debate.
needs me, Thomas. I hate to interrupt, but I think I need to go.
Oh,
This guy needs me. So, you want to just wrap up then?
should we close it out or what?
Yeah, let's do that. And
Yeah,
so, well, thank you
I
so
have a
much.
final question.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, do you want to answer the final question real quick,
yeah, yeah. I'll do that, and then we'll.
or you want to just give me one thing for the audience to resonate with?
Okay, one thing. Use your power. You've been given power, personal power, to be the author of your story. You do have that. People can't actually take it away from you. You can only give it away. Use it by figuring out the ways that you give it away and making changes to do less of that, and finding places that increase it and doing more of that. Use your power so that you can be more of the full expression of the person you're meant to be. And the world will be a better place just from that effort.
Tom Dardick, everybody, go check him out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Thomas.
See
All
ya.
right. Bye now.